Jim Marshall, born James Lawrence Marshall on December 30, 1937, in Wilsonville, Kentucky, would go on to become one of the NFL's most enduring and resilient figures. Moving with his family to Columbus, Ohio, when he was just 5, Marshall spent much of his early life balancing between city life and summers in his Kentucky hometown. From an early age, his football talent was apparent. At East High School in Columbus, he starred on an undefeated team and earned a slew of accolades, including All-City, All-State, and even All-American honors. His prowess on the field carried him to Ohio State University, where he played for the Buckeyes from 1957 to 1958. Not only did Marshall make his mark as a dominant tackle, but he also excelled in track and field, setting records in the discus and shot put. The 1957 Buckeyes team, helped in no small part by Marshall's strength and speed, achieved a 9-1 record and capped the season with a Rose Bowl victory in early 1958. That season, the team ranked first in several polls and second in the AP rankings. Among his standout performances, a 1958 game against Purdue saw Marshall scoring both touchdowns for Ohio State, a testament to his versatility and big game ability. His impact on the university's football legacy was recognized with his induction into the Ohio State Hall of Fame in 1978. Despite his success, financial constraints compelled Marshall to leave college before completing his senior year. He opted to begin his professional career in the Canadian Football League, joining the Saskatchewan Roughriders in 1959. Though mainly a defensive player, Marshall occasionally contributed on offense, including catching a touchdown pass against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, coached by Bud Grant, who would later become a key figure in Marshall's NFL journey. Eventually, the Roughriders traded Marshall to the Cleveland Browns, the team that had selected him in the 4th round of the 1960 NFL Draft. Marshall's stint with the Browns lasted only 1 season, but his path took a sharp and dangerous turn prior to the 1961 NFL season. While undergoing military training, he contracted encephalitis, a severe and life-threatening brain infection that left him in a coma for a period. After an arduous recovery, he was traded to the newly formed Minnesota Vikings. It was there, beginning in 1961, that Marshall would build his legendary status in professional football. For the next 19 seasons, Marshall became a fixture on the Vikings' defensive line, playing in every single game from 1961 until his retirement in 1979. His streak of 282 consecutive regular season games, 270 of them as starts, was an Ironman achievement that stood as a record for defensive players for years, later surpassed only by quarterback Brett Favre. Marshall was not just showing up, he was performing at an elite level week in and week out. He became best known as a member of the Purple People Eaters, Minnesota's formidable defensive front that also included Alan Page, Carl Eller, and Gary Larson. Together, they terrorized opposing offenses, and Marshall was a cornerstone of their success. Over his career, he recorded 127 sacks, the second highest total in team history behind Eller. He also recovered 30 fumbles, 29 of which were against opponents, a record for a defensive end. His excellence was recognized with Pro Bowl selections in 1968 and 1969, and he played an instrumental role in all 4 of the Vikings' Super Bowl appearances during the 1970s. By the time he retired, he was the last remaining player from the franchise's original 1961 roster. His final home game was a fitting send-off, 2 sacks and a game ball from Coach Bud Grant, a rare gesture of appreciation from the typically reserved coach. However, despite all his achievements, Marshall is perhaps most widely remembered for a moment of infamy. On October 25, 1964, in a game against the San Francisco 49ers, Marshall picked up a fumble and ran 66 yards, unfortunately, in the wrong direction. Thinking he had scored a touchdown, he jubilantly tossed the ball into the end zone, only to realize he had given the 49ers a safety. Though the Vikings won the game, the incident became legendary. Years later, he received a warm letter from Roy Riegels, who had experienced a similar moment during the 1929 Rose Bowl, welcoming him into the unique Wrong Way Club. The play lived on as one of the most iconic moments in NFL history, even earning a place on the league's list of 100 greatest plays in 2019. Beyond individual plays, Marshall's long-lasting influence was undeniable. He played more seasons as a defensive player, 20 in total, than anyone else in NFL history. He holds records for most complete seasons and consecutive starts for one team, and his total of 29 opponent fumble recoveries is tied with Hall of Famer Jason Taylor. Though his records were eventually surpassed by players like Jeff Fiegels and Brett Favre, the context of his position, defensive end, a physically punishing role, makes his streak of games even more remarkable. Marshall's number 70 jersey was retired by the Vikings, and he was enshrined in their Ring of Honor, cementing his status as a franchise legend. He was a finalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2004 and a semi-finalist for the senior nominees in 2023 and 2024, though induction remained elusive. The Professional Football Researchers Association acknowledged his excellence by placing him in their Hall of Very Good in 2004. In 2008, NFL Network ranked him the second-best player not in the Hall of Fame at the time, just behind Jerry Kramer, who would later be inducted. In retirement, Marshall chose to stay close to the community that had embraced him. He settled in St. Louis Park, Minnesota, and remained involved in business ventures including real estate, insurance, and financial services. He also dedicated time to philanthropic efforts, particularly those focused on supporting homeless and unemployed youth. Marshall's personal life saw two marriages, first to Anita, with whom he had 2 daughters, and later to Susan. In a moment of personal significance, he even missed the game where Brett Favre broke his consecutive starts record because it coincided with his wedding anniversary, though he later congratulated Favre in person at a Vikings practice. On June 3, 2025, Jim Marshall passed away at the age of 87 in Minneapolis. He had been hospitalized prior to his death. His story is one of incredible endurance, dedication, and consistency. More than the numbers and the highlights, what defined Marshall was his commitment to the sport he loved, to the teammates he fought alongside, and to the fans and communities who respected his every effort. Even in an era full of great athletes, Jim Marshall stood apart, not just for what he did on the field, but for how he carried himself off it. His legacy, filled with triumphs, a few unforgettable missteps, and an unbreakable spirit, ensures his place in the pantheon of football greats. And with that, thanks for watching, share, and subscribe.